Try not to be self-conscious. Hello there. And thank you, Jacob. And you're getting the whole lot in. Palette. So we're going to arrange the palette. And, okay. So we're going to start it from, we'll move from light to dark with the palette. So with a palette, you want to have the colours spaced around the edge, not in the middle, because you don't want to end up with a clogged up palette. Now the good thing about all of you who went to Blick is you have the giant palette, so you're in a better position than I am here. You've more space to manoeuvre. So we'll put the white on this side. Then we'll put the next lighter colour, which is medium yellow. After that, we'll use this next one, which is called yellow ochre, which is a kind of mustardy yellow. Now you can see I'm putting the paints about like an inch and a half or 2 inches apart, so that they're not jammed right beside each other. Are you able to follow me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I would recommend you just concentrate on one thing at a time, and you may have a remote chance of succeeding. So the next one will be, the next brighter colour will be red. Just leave it, don't worry, Christopher, just try and do nothing other than be here now. That's all you need to do. So I've put in this brilliant red, and I'm going to put beside it the darker red, which is called crimson. It's a darker red. So we're working around the spectrum, and then we'll have the brown. And I'll put the black here, Mars black. That's us. Okay, so we're in with the colours. Sometimes they add other colours, but I don't want to kind of confuse you with too much, because you can add a little bit of blue to a face and a little bit of green, you know, but you don't want to end up with a blue face or a green face, because there aren't many human beings with a blue face or a green face. They're maybe out there, but we haven't met them yet. So this is a basic setup that you can use to mix up all sorts of different faces with this. So taking it like so, where are my brushes now, Jacob? Here they are. This should be much the same set that you have. With the application of the painting, you have two, here we have it, Jacob, 2 containers of water. One is for cleaning the brush, and the other one is for applying the paint. So these 2 containers of water, we are set to go. Now, thank you, Jacob. And just try not to mix up a huge paste, I recommend, into the colour that you think your face is. Christopher, yes?
So basically, you want us to, if we're going to use the paints, just put them like down somewhere like downwards, so that it'll be much easier to use the same paint again, even after washing. Is that all right?
Put the paints downwards.
No, I mean like if you just using a, let's say you want to use a cruising, right? You just paint it
Clean
like
the
down,
brush
paint it
up.
like down, use the paintbrush, paint it downwards, so that you got like a sort of a streak, so you know where where to keep painting. Sorry if I could phrase it any better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paint downwards. Yeah, I think you're right there. Absolutely. So anyway, just take the paint here, downwards, and put a little bit in here like that. You're only going to mix up a little bit at a time, because no face is the same colour from top to bottom. People have got lighter bits in their face and darker bits in the face. Whatever your complexion is, it's always varied. There's redder bits, like the cheeks, you know, the blood is showing through. So there's always going to be a variety of tones on the skin. So I'm going to try and just mix up a general, oops, that's maybe I better watch that. It can get, that's something like it, so I'm going to start with that. So just a little bit at a time, incrementally, and where's my mirror? So we'll start applying, hopefully this is kind of semi-dry now. This was the brown undertone from last week. So I'm going to start with the nose. Now, when you put the paint on, I mean, I can think to myself immediately, oh, that's kind of like too dark. So I'm going to just put a little bit of light on this side. Remember last week I talked to you about where the light is hitting the face. So it's the same for this colour thing, you know, it's going to be a little bit darker in there, Miguel, where this side of the nose is here, and a little bit lighter on the other side. So if you take your brushes, say I mix the light and the dark side with one brush, and then take another brush, you can, using a motion like this, which is blending. A lot of painting is just really about blending and shadows. So you blend the two together like that. Because you don't want a face that's two-tone, you know, like half dark and half light. You want it kind of generally blending in from one to another. So I'm blending the light nose and the dark nose into a shaded nose. So we've got that. You can see that something, can you see that, Brandon?
Oh, barely.
Barely, yes. Jacob's cameraman in the way. So again here like that, I'm going to do this nose here a little bit darker. And I'm going to make this bit of the nose here a little bit lighter. Now it keeps going on and on and on. When it dries, you can go in and fix it up again. You can, once it dries, I'm going to try and do stuff here quickly that would take a lot longer to do. But once it dries, you can go in and tighten up bits that are kind of loose. You know, again, it's that old rule that I was saying last week. Start loose, finish tight. So we're going to redraw. That's what you need that smaller brush for. It's really I would call it a drawing brush. You know, it's the nearest thing you're going to be doing to drawing in this. So with that, you kind of tighten back what was not quite so perfect. Because I did that underpainting very quickly, as you saw while I was talking to you. So I'm wanting to sharpen that up a bit with this. Now, if you're like me, you like to get dirty. Some people aren't like that. They've got OCD. And they prefer pencil drawing. But if you're like me, you don't mind getting your finger in there and working on that a bit. And I'm going to put the shadow in here. Where's my brush again? I'm going to put the shadow in here at the side, a bit stronger here on this nose. So I'm going to move just a little bit of the black with the brown. You've got to be careful with it because it's you need more of the brown than the black, and that's it, it's gone. So we're going to go in there and just put a shadow here at the side of the nose. We're wanting the nose to jump out. And then into the cheek. Now you're going to have it a lot easier with the big palette. In fact, I think I'll keep telling them to make the students get the big palettes because they are a lot nicer to work with. So I'm going to blend those two together because you don't want the shadow just sitting there. It's attached, you know, it's part of your skin. It's not like separate from it. So I'm going to just knock that in there. Actually, I'm not even looking at this bloody thing. I'm going to take that in there. Now around this edge, even though it's, you know, the light is not, the light is supposed to be on that side, I still make the whole edge of the face light. It may sound, a lot of painting is a different type of thinking than you're used to, you know, you're wanting to, you're basically wanting the painting to jump out. So I put a light around the edge of the face and just blend in the skin to the light. Now if I could do the lips. The lips are going to put a little bit of blue with the lips, which, be careful, you know, you look like you're frozen to death in the carpet. So I put a little bit of blue with the lips. This is an okay-ish blue. But I'm wanting them a different colour than the rest of the face, so they're kind of... And with this, I just loosely put them in there for you. So I'm going to sharpen them up with this tiny brush. I'll make them more lip-shaped, and I think I need a bit more red. They've gone a bit too blue, you can see. The great thing about painting is you can't really make mistakes. All you can do is make, what does that guy on TV call it, Bob Ross? Happy accidents. Happy accidents. So you make a happy accident and it improves what you paint on next. So that's the top there. And I'm going to do the top lip is always looks darker than the bottom lip. So I'm going to make the bottom lip a bit lighter. And I'm going to put the shadow underneath this lip here. And it's this. You'll see. If you paid attention to some of my earlier classes, you'll get kind of reverberations now from the drawing class where I talked about things. You can see it's exactly the same process. Now I've got brown eyes. I'll just stick them in there because I'm finding them a bit weird looking at those eyes. Put the black spots on the pupils. So his cheek is a bit yellow ochre. Thinking there's no red blood under that cheek. I'll just stick some on there. We had a guy a few years ago, he painted his entire face with yellow ochre. Sadly for him, for the rest of the class, for the rest of the semester, the class knew him as only one thing, because they forgot his name. They called him Yellow Ochre Man. And he's lived, I mean, I think if you met him nowadays and I said that to him, I hope they would laugh. But that's what he was known as. Every time he came in, everyone would go, there's Yellow Ochre Man. And he had this huge face. I mean, it was literally yellow ochre. The face had no other colours in it. So he became known as Yellow Ochre Man. Who knows what's happened to him? So we'll just end there like that. Now the great thing about acrylic, which I don't usually paint with, so I'm kind of like, I'm like you just now, Samantha. I'm kind of like drifting between two worlds. So with yellow ochre, with the acrylic paint, the good thing about it is it dries really quick. The bad thing about it is it dries really quick. You know, so it's a kind of, it's what you call a double-edged sword. So you have to learn how to use it. You know, and to be honest with you, the more I'm getting into it, you know, it's got a lot of advantages, and there's no smell of it. You can use it in the house. It's pretty clean. It's non-toxic. You don't need turpentine or any of that smelly stuff in your house. And you can build up lots and lots of layers on it, unlike watercolor where you're really trapped with trying to get it perfect straight away. I just started a watercolor last week after I saw you, and I just gave up. You know, I've painted over it and I'm going to turn it into an oil painting. I just could not, I couldn't get the vibe. You know, I just felt like I was at school. So I just stopped it. Now I'm getting into it. So I'm just gonna try and quickly do stuff. I don't do paintings instantly. I mean, you'll see some artists on YouTube, but most of the films they show on YouTube are speeded up, you know, like, so you see someone doing an incredible painting and it's like takes 3 minutes to watch it because it's on fast speed. There's a reason for that, because it's really boring watching someone do a painting in real life. And but so I'm just going to loosely put this character in. Now you'll remember from the earlier classes I said I've just loosely put the man's hair there, but you don't need to bother about the eyebrows or the glasses or anything at this stage. We're at it again. I'm going to put a shadow underneath the neck, so I'm putting a little bit of brown and black.
Like I said, we mess up the color.
Yes.
At this stage right here, is there really
The face. Yeah, no, I've had people change their whole colours, but you know, like they look nothing like they look in real life, you know. But it's, you know, the thing is, not to stress about it. You know, I mean, it's not supposed to be, you know, a passport photograph or anything like that, you know. And if you get the colour completely wrong, you know, and you're very dissatisfied with it, I mean, I could change this guy's shade completely, you know, just even within the next minute or two, because this dries really quick. So, you know, I could quite easily go over that and make him darker, or more yellow, or whatever I was choosing. You know, you just let it dry and go over the top of it. Thank you, Jacob. I've got them in a kind of two-tone here, so I'm just going to blend those two bits together. You're basically not wanting it to look too jagged. I mean, there are artists who paint in a kind of jagged style. The girl coming in the second class after you today, she does a kind of jagged style where the face is composed of almost like triangles of colour all put together. You know,
Like,
cubist style, which is okay. But I just teach basic realism. I teach I teach just reality rather than style. Style, to me, I'm not really interested in style. See, that's the thing. I mean, you know, a style is imposed. To me, style isn't someone imposing on reality. That's fine, you know, and they can do it. But I'm more interested in just experiencing reality without a style, and that's more tricky. You know, I think you can easily have a style, and but I'm not really a stylist. You know, I'm more just into nature. So we're kind of like chopping this poor fellow in. What was I talking about before you asked me? The neck. I've forgotten about the neck. The trouble with painting is, you know, especially for me, I mean, it requires quite a lot of concentration. So I'm kind of easily throwing off my. I'm not too bad, you know, but I certainly couldn't have done this years ago. You know, I would have just stopped talking. You know, like that. But that's it. So I'm roughing the whole head in. It's a rough looking character. Now, what makes a difference to a painting really is the hand. You know, obviously, if your hand is, my hand is quite good. If your hand is shaky, you know, and you can't really maintain. Can you see me, Christopher? Your hand, is it? You see, there you go. Not too bad, not too bad. Keep that. So, you know, have you ever seen an alcoholic in the morning? The DTs, delirium tremors, you know, I've seen it. You've seen it? It's quite frightening. So this is just for your attention, students. I'm shaking away with the mash. So if your hand is shaky and unsteady, or you're half asleep, a good technique is to take one of the brushes that you've got from the selection box and set it against the canvas. Now, it doesn't matter what messes you get on the canvas because you're going to paint over it. So you can set it there and it'll just give your hand a nice thing to rest on. Chris, yeah?
That's a resting spot.
Correct, a resting spot. So you can work, what did you say? Downwards. I still can't work that one out, but I mean, it'll probably come to me at midnight. Oh, now I know what he meant, downwards. So you can hold the hand like that, you know, and such like. But the whole thing is just to really enjoy it, you know, and see if you can just try and experience, Nuha, see if you can just try and experience letting your hand go. Now when it comes in later on, here's that small brush. There are lots of idiosyncrasies, and I'm going to go over things that I wouldn't do at this stage, but I'm going to go over them with you so you get a sense of them. So on the top lip, I'm going to put a little light here. Now this would be done much later on, so I'm going to put a little light on the top lip there, like a milk lip, but not completely like that. I'm going to blend it into the lip. Jacob, can they see behind you? That's the problem. It's a kind of a collision between two realities. I'm going to use that brush again there to make that jump out a bit here. I want a separation between head and neck. You see how I'm blending it in now? With oils you can blend in easily. With acrylics you've only got a short window frame before it dries and the blending time is gone. So you have to get used to that. I'm used to oils, so it gives me, you know, hours of blending time, maybe a day. With this, if you don't do it within like 5 to 10 minutes, it's completely dry. So then you have to do this thing. Now if you use a brush like I'm using it just now, Samantha, if you use a brush like I'm using it just now with very little water on it and only a little bit of paint, I'm shoving a dozen techniques in front of your eyes straight away. But if you use a paint like that, it's called scumbling. It's basically scratching away at the surface, kind of like that. You know, there's not a lot of water on that. There's not a lot of paint on it. It's almost, Miguel, can you see that? It's almost a dry brush.
Yeah.
You can touch it. So it's almost a dry brush, and that technique is actually called dry brush painting. Now you can do that easily with acrylics. So that's one of the advantages of it. You can go back in and try and, oh God, some black paint was on there. Oh no, it's come from the eye. I've accidentally pulled part of his eye on there. That's what's called a happy accident. You know, so Scotty's made a happy accident. Darken up. So it's basically like that, you know, you're going back and forth, and every week you work on it. It gets a bit more real and a bit more real, and it'll have, the good thing about it, you can't hide from the shadows inside yourself with painting. It's not one of those things you can copy from somebody else's work on the internet. If you're half asleep, you'll produce a half asleep painting. If you're confused, you'll produce a confused painting. If you're nervous, you'll create a nervous painting. If you're happy, you'll create a happy painting. If you're awake, you'll create an awake painting. If you're enlightened, you'll create an enlightened painting. If you're angry, you'll create an angry painting. So it kind of reflects the shadows that are inside you. And that's a beautiful thing, because once those shadows are out of you and you can see them, they're no longer controlling you. That's what I think painting's about. It's a essential part of higher education where you're actually learning about yourself. You know, rather than someone putting information into you, telling you this, telling you that, making you learn this. This is where you are pulling what's inside you out, you know, so you're learning about yourself, and that's important. If you don't know yourself, it doesn't matter what you learn, you really essentially know nothing. And that's why painting never dies out despite all these advances. I mean, in the 19th century, the fear of painters, of course, was really strong because they invented photography. Suddenly, anybody could sit with a camera and take a photograph of somebody's face. You know, those old black and white photographs where you had to stand for ages because if you moved, they could suddenly do that, and all the artists said, oh God, we're out of a job, because a lot of their work was painting people. But strangely enough, it didn't happen. I mean, people got more freed up in their imaginations, so they didn't paint these stilted scenes. Photography could do that, and they painted the combination of reality and the mind, you know, and ideas and thoughts and feelings. So painting never really, painting is like the human soul. It adapts to current circumstances. So right now, painting is adapting to the digital age, which is a new thing that thinks it knows everything about everything, but as anybody who spends an evening browsing through Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, realise that it's just a lot of people with opinions and attitudes, and really unconscious, you know, very, 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 very unconscious people making other people wrong, and very unforgiving, you know. I mean, that's the problem with it, you know, they shame people and they're doomed forever. So it's not a very nice part of humanity that's been revealed by it. So that's my theory on that. So we're kind of like doing a rough sketch with the skin here and the blendings, but I think you get the idea about it. It's pretty easy going. You'll remember from last week when I did Brianna's head, I had the brown background on it. So I could just knock in something here quickly. I've got a bigger brush. I'll do it. So I'm going to just make this head jump out a bit. I'll use black and brown. Maybe green. Paint, of course, used to be very expensive. Nowadays, I mean, you can buy all those tubes for $10. Back in the days, you would never get. So they're all produced through chemistry and different techniques, but they're so cheap now that anyone can go and use whatever range of colours they want. So I'm going to make a dark background to make the head stand out. Now, one thing you do with the background, if you're at this stage and you paint, you can, if the face was too fat, you can actually take the background in and cut them down, you know, and shape the head like that. So I'm going to just knock out that like that. So I've got a kind of dark green scene going on here. So far, I've spent 20 minutes on this, believe it or not. Eh? I'm going to make this side a wee bit lighter, same shade. No, it's just the nearest colour to me. You can use any colour you like. And if you weren't wanting to if you have the rag, I don't know if you managed to get that, but it was one of the things I suggested on the list. You can do this like this. You know, you can just use the rag and smooth it in. You know, you can get different textures and surfaces on the painting. You're not restricted to the brushes, so this can give you a smooth it in like that. It's a rag.
Is this a regular?
Yeah, anything. You got an old pair of socks, take them in. You know, anything that's made of cloth. I wouldn't buy one, you know, waste of money. You know, if you go and buy a thing in a bag with rag written on it, you'll pay $5 for it. You know, it's just, you must have old clothes or something you don't need. So you just take it in. It's best if it's cotton, so you can shape it with the finger like that. I mean, I haven't really been looking at my own face for this, so it's higgledy-piggledy. Who knows? You know what? I wondered. Sometimes I noticed you asked that question, Uri, why am I painting green? And I gave a kind of glib, it was the only colour. Actually, you know, it was a good. Now that I'm thinking, it was a good question. Quite often, when you're painting something subconsciously, you'll paint the colours you're wearing. And I never thought, like, I'm wearing this green stuff with this greeny blue shirt.
That's what I thought too.
So it's exactly what's going on. And then I'm going to do this, and I never even thought about it because I'm not so worked out as you might think. You know. Every day I come here, and this is a secret for the cameras, I really don't really know what I'm going to say next. You know, I don't have a pre-made plan in my head, and I think it makes my classes exciting. And so, you know, it's less you know what the word rhetorical means?
Yes.
Like a person who speaks like they're reading it from a book. I'm not really like that. I'm just I'm like living it at the moment. So that is a different kind of. But I think you're right. Yeah, never thought about it. So here's the green jacket. A bit weird there. How's your hand there, Jacob? Hellish.
Huh?
Is the hand okay?
Yeah.
Liar. Yeah, he's looking exhausted. That's the coronavirus head. Frightened. Well, is it not the topic of the moment? I mean, you can't turn on the news all the time. It's 24/7. I mean, it's giving us all nightmares. So I was back to the drawing board here, so I haven't. It's blue. That'll do it.
Okay, that's good.